Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Deen Choudhury, I'm happy to be here, and I am happy that Allah has allowed us to meet for the first time. You have been doing a lot of work, mashallah, over the years. You're one of my oldest in the team, translating and putting in Bangla subtitles to my videos, and I thank Allah for the work that you have done and pray that Allah might bless you. And I'm also happy today that I have another member of my team now, Dawah Digital. I never knew about Mohsin and his wonderful YouTube channel, Dawah Digital, and today I have him with me as well. And he's recording. Thank you, Mohsin, for recording this interview.
I've been handling your social media for quite some time. Brother Muhammad actually put me on social media, and I was handling your Facebook page and all this, and I've come to know thousands of your students and fans and everywhere, and everybody's been bombarding me with questions to ask you. Sometimes they send you by email, sometimes they send it to me for years, and so I did want to do this interview. It's been a long time coming, so shall I begin?
Let me first of all confess, Deen Choudhury, I have never used the term social media. I don't know what it is about, and I don't know the difference between Facebook and Nosebook. so you'll have to excuse me. And a further confession that I really don't have an interest of entering into the field of Facebook and Nosebook and these things. I much prefer to stay out of it. So I'll deal with whatever questions you have, and my students. I don't call them fans. I prefer to call them my students of knowledge, to try to answer their questions as best as I can, inshallah.
Inshallah. The first question is regarding Rome. Muslims will make an alliance with Rome, which is in Russia, but on another narration it is stated that the peace treaty will be broken because of a small argument between Christians and Muslim soldiers, and the Christians will join forces with the Jews to fight the Muslims. Why would this happen? Is it because Russia has another face?
Let me, in responding to this question, which has been coming at me from every single direction, east, west, north and south, sometimes from on top, sometimes from below as well, about a hadith which speak about a betrayal by Rome and a big clash between us and Rome and so on in a hadith. Let me respond by beginning to say that it is a bit disappointing to me that I have labored for so long after having had such a wonderful teacher in Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, who taught me the most important thing. Deen, you're going to have to take a little time to listen to this answer, because I want to answer once and for all. He taught me the most important thing of all that he gave to me was methodology. Methodology for studying the Quran and for assessing the hadith. And I wrote a book on the subject. And I don't know whether it's whether because some students are just plain lazy and they don't want to read the books but they want the answers, or others are not interested in reading and studying the subject of methodology. If they had studied the subject of methodology, and if they had done their homework, they would not be bombarding me with the question. They would not be puzzled. No, they would be able to resolve these problems themselves. They would be scholarly in the approach to knowledge. So I'm delivering a wake-up call to them in this interview. I have deliberately refrained from commenting on this subject for so long because I want them to be able to climb the mountain themselves. Don't expect me to put you on my back and climb the mountain on every single subject. My teacher, Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, used to say, he says, I'm not going to put you on my back and climb the mountain. I'll teach you how to climb the mountain. That's what he used to say. Now, if you would take the subject of Rome and alliance and friendship with Rome, and then how to deal with this hadith, where do you start? And the answer is, if you have not been too lazy, or you've been eating biryani and going to sleep and expect Imran Hosein to answer everything you have to ask him, the answer is you start with the Quran. How many times must I repeat that? It is becoming irritating to me now. And at the age of 76, I have to share with you my anguish. I'm not speaking to you, Deen, I'm speaking to them out there. Don't be worried. You have to start with the Quran. And when you start with the Quran, you start with Surah Rum. And when you start with Surah Rum and Allah says, shall I take another 1 hour with this subject that I've lectured on so many times, and you've listened to the lectures, it goes in through one ear and it goes out through the other ear. غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Rome has been defeated, and there is absolutely no two answers to the question of who is Rome. The answer of who is Rome must be answered by the Quran, not by the Hadith. If you want to go to the Hadith for the definition of Rome, you are a dum-dum. Go find another teacher. The answer to the question, who is Rome, must come from the Quran. And when you go to the Quran, there's only one answer. It's the Byzantine or the Christian Empire. And Allah says that He intervened to help them. He intervened. بِنَصْرِ Allah intervened to help a Christian people. Did you hear that? Or is it too difficult for your skull to accept that Allah can intervene to help a Christian people? They had the same beliefs at that time as they have now, the Orthodox Christians. They worship Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam at that time. They had the Trinity and all of these things they had at that time. And Allah intervened to help them. بِنَصْرِ. And they were able to defeat their enemies, the Persian Empire. And then having defeated them, Allah then subhanahu wa ta'ala then went on to say, min qabl wa min ba'd wa yawma idhin yafrahul mu'minun. They were able to be victorious by Allah's help, bi Nasrillah, on 2 occasions, twice. And on both occasions, the believers would be rejoicing and celebrating the victory of a Christian people. The first one was already mentioned, and it occurred in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. And so there is a second victory of Rome which is to come. And when that victory of Rome comes, it will be on the basis of help which comes from Allah, bi Nasrillah. And when that victory comes, it will be a time for Muslims to celebrate. If that is uncomfortable for you, you can't stomach it, you cannot stomach the Quran, what can I do for you? You want to cross swords with me, come to the Quran. Let us talk on the Quran. If I am wrong on my explanation of the Quran, come and tell me what's the right thing. So there is a second victory of Rome that's coming. That's what the Quran tells us. And Rome is a Christian people. Rome was divided into two parts after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. There was one part of Rome which continued to follow Nabi Isa ﷺ. And we know how you can recognize them that they were still following Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, because they do not allow a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate. And another part of Rome broke away and formed Western Christianity, and we know that these are the ones who committed the kufr. A man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate there. So you now have two Romes. This is history. And Allah says in the Quran, when He spoke about the crucifixion, the attempt to crucify Nabi Isa alayhi salam, which is my subject on Friday night, inshallah, Yawmul Jum'ah. وَإِذْ قَالَ اللَّهُ يَا عِيسَى إِنِّي مُتَوَفِّيكَ وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ. O Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, I'm going to take your soul, your nafs and your ruh. وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ, and I'm going to raise you unto myself. إِلَيَّ وَمُطَهِّرُكَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and I'm going to purify you of all that mud that they threw against you, those people who committed kufr, who rejected you as the Messiah, who declared that your mother committed sin, and those who support those rejections. These are the people to be cleansed. وَجَعِلُ الَّذِينَ تَبَعُوكَ, and I am going to cause those who follow you, that part of the Christian world which follows you, فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, I will cause you to become ascendant and dominant over the other part of the Christian world which is in kufr. إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, and when that takes place, it will continue until Judgment Day. That has not taken place as yet. That ascendancy of one part of the Christian world which is following Nabi Isa alayhi salam, where a man cannot marry a man and get a marriage certificate, over the other part of the Christian world where a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate, that ascendancy or dominance of this part over that part has not as yet taken place. It is now taking place. And when it takes place, it will continue. NATO can do what you want. You cannot stop it. Once Allah causes this part of the Christian world to be raised in eminence and dominance over that part of the Christian world, it will continue until the end of the world. If you can't stomach the Quran, what can I do for you? And so it is from the Quran that you must first go and get guidance. Allah speaks in the Quran. I'm sorry that I have to take a whole hour to answer this question. If you had done your homework, all of you who've been asking the question, I don't have to spend all this time to answer this question. If you had done your homework and gone to the Quran to study the subject and then assess the hadith. Allah speaks in the Quran about a Christian people who will be closest in love and affection for you. And He gives the description, and I've 10,000 times I've already explained that verse of the Quran. But it goes in through one ear and it comes out the other ear. Yes. Who are those Christians? I say they are the Orthodox Christians, but you respond and say, they have killed 10,000 babies in Syria, and they're raping all the Christian women, all the women of Syria, and so on, and all that garbage that came out of a garbage bin, and it should go back into the garbage bin. That's all the rubbish that you have to be throwing at me when I come with the Quran. When I come to the Quran, don't come with rubbish. When I come with the Quran, respond with the Quran. And let us understand and seek, what does the Quran say? These are the people, the Orthodox Christian world, that Allah has spoken of in the Quran. And Russia is the leader of this Orthodox Christian world. But no, you might say it's not Russia, it's Washington. That's your thinking. Russia is the leader of the Orthodox Christian world. And it is that Orthodox Christian world that Allah has said in the Quran are going to be closest in love and affection for you. But you don't want to hear that. It's sticking in your throats. You don't want to hear that. And Allah has spoken about another Christian people. And He has said about those Christian people who make an alliance with the Jews, don't take them as your friends and allies. Because if you take them as your friends and allies, you're no longer a Muslim. You join them. So when you go to the Hadith and you find a room in the Hadith which now launches war on the Muslim because one Muslim got up and one Christian got up and said that the cross is victorious, and a Muslim comes and kills him and says, no, Allah is victorious. And then the whole Christian army turns on the Muslim army and fights and kills the Muslim armies and so on. How do you assess this nonsense? If it is a valid hadith, then how do you assess it? If it is a fabrication, it's nonsense. It could not be the room of the Quran. And I am talking about the room of the Quran. I'm not talking about any other room. So either one of two things. You should have done this work already. You should have come to the conclusions already. I should not have to do this homework for you. If I have to do this homework for you when I leave this world, how can you extend the frontiers of knowledge in Islamic eschatology? I expect to be leaving behind me scholars who will grow and become taller in knowledge than I am. That's what I want from you. The hadith is either in conflict. This part of the hadith is either in conflict with the Quran, because in the Quran, room is not our enemy. Room will not behave in this way. Now, so this part of the hadith could be a fabrication. And if it is a Sahih hadith, and if it is a valid hadith, then this is another room that the Prophet is speaking about. It could not be the room of the Quran. So what do you do when there is a conflict between the room with the hadith and the Quran? Number one, you stay with the Quran. And if this is not the room of the Quran, there is another room, you have to identify who are these that Allah's Messenger is speaking of as room. Who will fight against us? We have an alliance with them, and then they will fight against us. They will betray that alliance. It could not be the room of the Quran. I am speaking about room of the Quran. So if you want to be critical of me, you have to come to show I am wrong in my explanation of the Quran. If I am right in the explanation of the Quran about an alliance with Rome, then you'll have to accept that the room of this hadith cannot be the room of the Quran, and I should not have had to spend 15, 20 minutes to explain that to you. Frankly, I'm disappointed.
Jazakallah, Sheikh, for this lovely explanation. And I think we've covered question number 2 in your explanation, so I'll just jump to number 3. For the past 7-8 years, you have mentioned a hadith from Abu Dawud which talks about Malhama, Umranu Baitul Maqdis, Qarabu Yatrib, Khurujul Malhama. And you mentioned that this Malhama will be the mother of all wars, and it will probably wipe out 90% of human population. My question is it possible that this Malhama has already occurred in the form of World War II, because this planet has never witnessed a war as big as World War II, where millions of people died, and this did happen before Umrano Baitul Maqdis. Jerusalem became the center stage after the Balfour Declaration, and Kharabu Yatrib Medina lost its glory days after the Khilafah was abolished.
Fortunately, this is not such an irritating question, and it's not a difficult question, no. When we seek for an explanation in the Quran for the Malhama, or the Great War, which is the chapter of my book that I'm writing at this time. It's almost finished. The topic is the Quran and the Great War. The Quran and the Great War. Allah speaks in the Quran about the destruction of every town and every city. And the verse is in Surah al-Isra, And he says, بَعْدَ أُوذِ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا نَحْنُ مُهْلِكُوهَا قَبْلَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُوهَا عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا كَانَ ذَلِكَ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَسْطُورًا. That every town and every city we will destroy, and those which escape destruction will be punished with terrible punishment. And this is something inscribed in the book. I'm not translating because the Quran cannot be translated. I am simply explaining what Allah has said in the Quran. This is tafsir. My first comment on this ayah of the Quran is that Allah will not destroy a town or a city which does not deserve destruction, because that will be unjust, and Allah is not unjust. And so now our first comment is that Allah will destroy every town and every city which deserves to be destroyed. Every town and every city which deserves to be destroyed is a massive destruction in the world. And for me, a massive destruction in the world of every town and every city which ought to be destroyed is a one-time event. And that one-time event of massive destruction fits into the Malhama. Which are those towns? Which are those towns which ought to be deserved and destroyed? Well, you know, first of all, there is homosexuality and the people of Lut. And when Allah destroyed them, He did it as an ayah, a warning that if you return to homosexuality, I'll return with my destruction. Number two, that Allah spoke in the Quran that He's going to wage war on the moneylender. That's what He said. The last verse to be revealed in the Quran was on riba. Allah and His Messenger will wage war on those who are still practicing riba and growing rich by sucking the blood of mankind. So when Allah wages war to destroy every town and every city, which town and which city should be up on the top of the list? Number one, the moneylender. Those who have grown fat with their banking system based on riba, on the monetary system based on riba, and they have grown wealthy and fat, and the rest of the world has been ripped off and are living now in miserable poverty. Not only is Allah going to destroy you, destroy your cities, but He's going to punish you. How does He punish you? Those who are not destroyed will be punished with terrible punishment. The punishment is, Allah says, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَى, those who consume riba, as in the Western world. لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّتُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. They are going to eventually live like a people who have been driven to madness by the touch of shaitan. Those who are growing fat with riba are going to live eventually like a people who have been driven to madness by the touch of shaitan. They're going to live a miserable life. They're going to see events of a man going into a school and shooting and killing so many children, going into a restaurant or into a supermarket and just blindly killing people, as though they've gone mad. As though they've gone mad. And then thirdly, Allah speaks of destruction. He destroyed Fir'aun because of his oppression. And when He destroyed Fir'aun, He destroyed all his army with him. He said, I preserve the body of Fir'aun, so that when it is recovered in history, it will function as a sign, لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً, for the succeeding generation. That if you follow the path of Fir'aun and become the oppressors of the world, I will destroy you the same way I destroyed Fir'aun. So when the Malhama takes place and Allah is destroying every town and city, do you think He's going to destroy those who say, not for 100 years, we will never allow a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate? Will He destroy them? When Allah is destroying every town and every city in the Malhama, will He destroy those who become miserably poor because of riba? Huh? And those who are the victims of oppression? Not at all. So when the Malhama takes place, Allah will be on one side and will help that side. And the other side is going to be destroyed and defeated. But I don't want to say more about this subject. There's much more on the Malhama. But let us keep them guessing.
I've got a really, really tiny question regarding the Malhama again. Does the Malhama have to involve nuclear warheads or nuclear bombs? Because certain studies show that this planet cannot survive a nuclear world war because it will create tsunamis, earthquakes. Even in nuclear winter, the sun wouldn't come in. There will be a huge cloud.
Good question. Yeah, good question. Good question. I understand the question. Yeah. First of all, we now turn to the hadiths of Sahih Bukhari, and then we'll come to the Quran, because the hadith is in harmony with the Quran. That the Prophet ﷺ prophesied, you know about the war in which 99 out of every 100 will be killed. I perhaps believe that I have done more work on this hadith than most other scholars of Islam have done. Okay? I have consistently explained this hadith for years and years and years and years, when everybody else is silent on it. A war in which 99% of combatants have been killed has never occurred so far in history. A war in which every town and every city is going to be destroyed fits into this hadith. It's harmonious with this hadith. And only a war in which weapons of mass destruction are used would kill 99% of all combatants. Nuclear weapons and thermonuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. So we may or may not use the word nuclear. What we should say is weapons of mass destruction, because there may be weapons out there even worse than nuclear weapons we don't know about as yet. Then there is more evidence in the Quran now about supporting nuclear war. In one of the most intriguing surahs of the Quran on Akhir Zaman, it's not Surah Al-Kahf. No, it's not Surah Al-Isra. No, it is Surah Al-Rahman. Yes. But so far I have never come across a tafsir of Surah Al-Rahman which shows its links, its direct links with Akhir Zaman and with the Malhama. I've never come across any hadith, any tafsir which has done so far. My critics are going to say, well, if he is the first person to ever say something, no one ever said it before, well, then he has to be wrong. And my response is, okay, I'm wrong. So then what do? Forget me and go about your way and leave me alone if I'm wrong. All right? I am making no effort whatsoever to convince you that I am right. And I am warning the people, do not accept my views unless you are convinced that they are correct. So if you are saying that I am wrong, that nobody ever said it before, Imran is the first to say it, and I am wrong, and then my response is, okay, fine, full stop, I'm wrong. So then why don't you go your way and leave me alone? Okay? I am perfectly happy and comfortable to continue doing the work that I am doing, assured, with the assurance that if this is indeed the truth that I am explaining, it will survive in history. That's right. And so when we go to Surah Al-Rahman of the Quran, and I cannot expand on it today, but on another occasion we can do that, inshallah, you have to ask yourself the question, nothing happens in the Quran by accident. Nothing. Allah does not waste words in the Quran. No. When Zulkarnain went in the direction of the rising of the sun, and he came across a people, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا, a people for whom we had provided nothing more as a covering other than what they had naturally. So hence a people perhaps living a primitive way of life. What would he do? How would he respond to them? How would he use power with them? Allah uses only one word, one single solitary word to explain the response. He says, كَذَلِكَ. كَذَلِكَ. Meaning, he met them like that and he left them like that. So one word he uses, one. Should I repeat that for you? He uses only one solitary word. So then why in Surah Ar-Rahman does he repeat 31 times فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? Has anyone ever answered that question? Is it by accident that Allah has done this? Why this superfluity? Why this repetition? It cannot be by accident. Then give me the answer. Tell me what is the... And I'm speaking now to my critics who are relentless in attacking me and in closing the doors of the masjid to me. Shame on you. I'm asking you to answer me, not those who are coming to me humbly, with humility, with hunger in their hearts for knowledge, with thirst in their hearts for... I'll never speak to them like that, not at all. But to you, who shut the doors of the masjid to me, I'm asking you for the answer. Don't you have any shame? When will you give me the answer? Why has Allah repeated 31 times in Surah Ar-Rahman, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? I'm not going to give you the answer, no. No, I want you to tell me the answer. But if you go to Surah Ar-Rahman, you'll see the Malhama in Surah Ar-Rahman. And you'll see who the Malhama is going to be attacking, who are going to be destroyed in the Malhama. And you'll see the evidence in Surah Ar-Rahman that is most certainly harmonious with a nuclear war. Thank you.
Umar radiallahu anhu swore by Allah's name in front of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Ibn Sayyad was indeed Dajjal, and the Prophet remained silent on this matter. If the Prophet did not disagree with Umar radiallahu anhu's statement, then why should we say that Ibn Sayyad was not Dajjal?
Good. Fine. Let us now use proper methodology. Yes. Sulaiman alayhi salam saw a vision. And excuse me, I hope you're listening to me. This is not hadith. This is Quran. So when you come at me as though you're always coming at me, remember this is the Quran. Remember you should show respect for the Quran. I'm talking to my critics. Allah gave him the vision of someone sitting on his throne. And that someone was a jasad. What he saw in that vision was so terrifying to him. That person sitting on his throne was so evil. And he recognized that that person sitting on his throne wants to inherit his kingdom. That's why he's sitting on the throne. He wants to inherit my kingdom. And you will kindly excuse me if I say it's the holy state of Israel. I don't know any other answer to give. So I call it the holy state of Israel, the kingdom of Solomon alayhi salam. And then he responded by making a dua to Allah. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. Kindly forgive me, O Allah, and grant that my kingdom may be such that none can inherit it after me. None can inherit it after me. indicating that my kingdom must end when I die. Good. Who is that sitting on the throne of Sulaiman alayhi salam, who wants to inherit the kingdom and who is an evil being? And it terrifies Sulaiman alayhi salam to such an extent that he makes this dua, unprecedented in history, that this Khilafah state, the first Khilafah state in history, should end when I die. My answer is Dajjal. If you're not comfortable with my answer, there is no problem. You can have another explanation. But if you go beyond that to say that I'm wrong and I'm misguided, you must tell me what is right, so that I can be sure that I'm wrong. What is right? That you're not doing that. And so from this verse of the Quran, it is confirmed to me that Dajjal wants to rule over the Holy Land and over a holy state of Israel. Did Ibn Sayyad have even an iota of a connection with that subject? Do I need to continue any further? This is the Quran. I have not touched any hadith as yet. I am dealing with the book of Allah, the Quran. Answer me. There's no connection between Ibn Sayyad and the state of the holy state of Israel and ruling over the Holy Land. Nothing at all. Ibn Sayyad could not have been Dajjal, and this is only the beginning of the answer. I don't need to go further than this.
If we are indeed living in the age of tall buildings and slavery, why are we not seeing one man would have to handle 50 women? Is this a decline of baby boys being born? Or is this an indication of loss of manhood among men in the last age? Because baby boys are still being born in the cities despite eating GM foods and using cellular phones.
It's a good question, and I can offer an answer, and my answer can be wrong, and there can be others more competent out there than I am to answer such questions. Now let me give a warning. Let me give a warning to those of you who believe that Imran Hosein has an answer to every question, and Imran Hosein is the most learned man in the whole world, etc., etc. Let me give a warning that you are going to be dangerous students of mine if you have such views. No. When I am confronted with a subject where I have inadequate knowledge, I always say, go to such a man, go to this one, go to that one, because he has more knowledge than I have on this subject. When I feel myself competent to answer on a question on a subject, then I'll offer an answer. I will not teach you anything unless I am convinced that it is correct. So when I offer an answer on this hadith about one man having to maintain, not marry, maintain 50 women, I simply offer an opinion, and my opinion may be inadequate. For many years I said that perhaps the reason why one man would have to maintain 50 women was that in Akhir Zaman there would be an alarming decline in the births of baby boys. And that this will come across because of damage being done to the male chromosomes in the male sperm. I don't see why I should withdraw that view. That is not yet taking place, but there is evidence already that the vibrations or the radiations from cellular phones and so on have a damaging effect upon us. But my last book, entitled Dajjal, the Quran and Awwal al-Zaman, in that book I had to make an explanation of the verse of the Quran which is in Surah Al-Sabah, I think, وَلَمَّا قَضَى سُلَيْمَانَ الْمَوْتِ مَا ضَلَّهُ مَعَ مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ تَأْكُلُ مِنْ سَعَتَهُ. That when Sulaiman alayhi salam died, the jinn who were imprisoned, who were ordered by Allah to work for him, and they, of course, in their world of space and time, they were not aware that Sulaiman had died. No. And they believed that Sulaiman was still alive because they saw someone sitting on his throne holding on to his staff. And so long as that fellow sitting on the throne held on to the staff, they could not recognize it was not Sulaiman. No. And so up to this day that I'm speaking, up to this moment I'm here in London, they still believe that Sulaiman is sitting on the throne. Yes. And they're still working for that fellow sitting on the throne. And this is one of the reasons why the scientific and technological revolution took place in the Western world. And this is one of the reasons why this gigantic exploration of space and the cruise missiles and the satellites and the intercontinental ballistic missiles and the submarine drones at the bottom of the sea and missiles down embedded in the heart of the earth coming out and so on, became possible because they have jinn, evil jinn, working with them and will continue to work with them because they could not recognize that Sulaiman is dead. They continued up to now as I am speaking. But then the Quran says that Dabbatul Ard will come and consume the staff. The Quran never said that they'll come and nibble at the bottom of the staff until the staff loses its balance. That came out of Hollywood. The Quran says, Ta'akulu, they will consume the staff, meaning consume the miraculous qualities of the staff. And I came to the conclusion, read my book, the Quran, Dajjal, the Quran and Awwal al-Zaman, in which I have suggested, I can be wrong, that Dabbatul Ard is the electronic waves, the radiations that is consuming us all over the world now with your GPS, is it called? GPS, yeah, GPS and so on, and your cellular phones, and your smartphones, and your television, and all these things, and the major damage will be done to children. I believe that children will lose their capacity to memory. For memory, they won't be able to memorize anything. The past will be gone for them, and they will not be able to anticipate the future. The children of today and tomorrow are going to be imprisoned in the here and the now. So it's not just damage on the male chromosomes in the sperm. It could be far more than that. This was my initial response to the hadith. But then afterwards, after I had traveled in France for some time, in France, then I realized that there was also a second explanation for the hadith. Because the Prophet said that women will dress like men, and that's already happening. But he said that men will dress like women. Yes. When a man dresses like a woman, it could be because he wants to attract another man. But more likely it could be because he's abandoning his role and function as a man in society. And so they do not maintain women anymore. And women have to fend for themselves. It is in that situation where a woman turns to men, you are supposed to maintain me. And a man says, yes, this is the function Allah gave to me. Such men will be very rare, of course. Then such a man would have to maintain eventually 50 women, because men will be abandoning the functional role that Allah gave them in society.
The Quran mentions Isa alayhi salam is far removed from shirk. According to a hadith in Sahih Muslim, when Isa alayhi salam returns, he will break the cross and abolish jizya. Is it because the true followers of Jesus will obey him and accept Islam?
Well, first of all, We have to ask the question, and it's painful for me to ask it, because so many people simply do not want to do their homework. No, they just don't want to do their homework. I have to do their homework for them. I have to answer all their questions. They just would not do their homework. Did the religion of Islam come with Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam? Deen of Islam. Did it come for the first time in the world with Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam? They're afraid to answer that question. Because from the time they answer that question, their whole world of knowledge begins to collapse. The Deen of Islam came to the world for the last time with Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is shocking to them to hear that. So there were people who followed the Deen of Islam long before Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam came. Okay? And while many of them turned away from the Deen of Islam, the Quran confirms that amongst them there were those who were still following the Deen of Islam. So woe unto those who say, every single one of them is a kafir. Woe unto them. We part company. We part company from such rubbish. The Deen of Islam is something that we share. That we who follow Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, we share the Deen of Islam with others, amongst whom are those who follow Nabi Isa alayhi salam. When Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, he will correct whatever mistakes they are making. But they have been following the Deen of Islam. He doesn't have to give them the Deen of Islam for the first time, you dumb. They are already following the Deen of Islam, but they were making mistakes. And so when he returns, every single one of them who follows him, I'm not talking about followers of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, because we don't follow Jesus. The Muslims, the followers of the Deen of Islam that came with Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, we are not followers of Jesus. No! We never were and we will never be. We are followers of this Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And when he returns, he does not come to us. No! He's coming to his ummah, not to us. He is coming to Banu Israel. Allah said that in the Quran. But you don't want to turn to the Quran for guidance. So what can I do? Ya Bani Israel, inni Rasulullahi ilaykum. I am the messenger of Allah to you. Rasulan ila Bani Israel. This is the Quran. And of course there are two terms synonymous. One is Banu Israel and the other is Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab. So when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, all those of the Ahlul Kitab who follow him, who would not be a people who say that a man could marry another man and get a stinking marriage certificate. No, those are not his followers. When he returns, then he will correct them and declare to them, and they'll accept it, that Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, is a prophet of Allah. And they will all accept it. And secondly, that the Quran is the word of Allah. And they will all accept it. All of them. There will not be a single one of them, of the Ahlul Kitab, who will not accept that the Quran is the word of Allah. And that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is the messenger of Allah. But they don't have to enter this ummah. No. They are in Islam already. They are already in Islam. They do not have to enter our ummah. No. So they will follow their Nabi. Even though they accept Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam as a messenger of Allah, every single one of them, and they accept the Quran as the word of Allah, every single one of them, they will continue to follow their Nabi, and we will follow our Nabi. And so history will end with two ummahs. The ummah of Nabi Isa alayhi salam and the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And there will be love and affection between us. But my critics can't swallow that.
Why would Gog and Magog throw arrows at the sky? Will they be targeting jinns or aliens? Is there a possibility of a jinn or alien invasion prior to this event?
You have to go to Surah Ar-Rahman to recognize and understand the link between Gog and Magog, the Judeo-Christian Zionist Alliance, NATO, and Star Wars. And Star Wars. Must be 100,000 lectures I've already delivered on Gog and Magog. Must be about 100,000 lectures where nobody else lectures on the subject. No, I'm the only one in which I've identified Gog and Magog. Okay, Surah Al-Anbiya, the Qarya. And that Gog and Magog would be the Judeo-Christian Zionist Alliance, which has NATO as its military arm. That's Gog and Magog. But the link between Gog and Magog and Star Wars is there in Surah Ar-Rahman. Sorry. And yes, it most certainly has a connection with the jinn. That is why you have the verse repeated, how many times? 31 times. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ 31 times. Rabbikuma means two people. One, human beings, and the other jinn, and both evil. So the verse of the Quran which is linked with Star Wars and with shooting arrows up into the sky, which is the missiles and so on, is the ayah in which Allah says, Ya ma'shar al-jinni wal-ins. And He's not speaking to all human beings, and He's not speaking to all jinns. He's speaking to the human beings and the jinn who have been constantly addressed in this surah, and 31 times He has asked them, He has said, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So you can't make a mistake. Who is He talking about? He's talking about this community of human beings who are evil, and this community of jinn who are evil and who are in alliance with each other, and it is these people who address Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-ins. In istata'tum an tanfuzu min aqtaris samawat. There you are, the Star Wars. Aqtaris samawat wal-ard. If you wish to embark on the effort to explore and penetrate the stratas of the sky and the samawat and the stratas of the earth, which includes the ocean, the depths of the ocean, fanfuzu. Go ahead and pursue the effort. So the jinn are helping human beings in this effort of missiles and satellites and all of these things. But then Allah, I think I'm speaking a little bit too much today.
It's okay.
I'm taking too much out of the cat is coming out of the bag. I don't want NATO to know this. I don't want NATO to know this. No, I prefer NATO does not know this at this time. No. Let them go do their research in Surah Ar-Rahman. Yes, I think I've spoken enough. I don't want to speak anymore and reveal anymore. That there is in Surah Ar-Rahman that which explains definitely that the jinn are supporting the efforts for exploration of the stratus of the sky and the depths of the earth. Mm-hmm.
In modern terms, if we say jinns are aliens, do you believe that we are living among them and that Dajjal's science and technological evolution or revolution is actually alien technology?
This is the kind of research I want my students to do when I'm no longer in this world. There are scientists and scholars in the Western world who have integrity in them and who have not lost integrity, no. And these people will fearlessly go back to the Middle Ages and show the link between the scientific and technological revolution and what was called in that time, they call it magic. And when they use the word magic at that time, they didn't use the word magic in the sense in which the casual, frivolous way in which we use the word magic today. No. Magic was a word which was respectable at that time. And it referred to whatever was supernatural that could be used to influence the natural order. And yes, I agree, I confirm it, they're correct, but it's just that we call it the jinn. But this is research work for future Islamic eschatology.
Why do you say the sun rising from the west is symbolic when the Quran confirms in 3 ayats, Surah Rad, Surah Fatir, Surah Yasin, that the sun runs its course for a term appointed or for a period determined? So if the Quran says Allah's creation does not change, is this statement not irrelevant to this subject?
Well, you have to show me in the Quran where Allah says in the Quran that the sun rises from the west. Why don't you cause it to rise from the east? This is Ibrahim alayhi salam confronting the king. And Ibrahim alayhi salam says in the Quran, I believe you must be familiar with it. This is, plain and clear and direct language. I don't think Ibrahim alayhi salam was making a mistake. He said to the king, the sun rises from the east. Why don't you cause it to rise from the west? Meaning, the natural order, the one which Allah has ordained, is the sun rising from the east. And the rival to the natural order is the one that he suggests, come on, let it rise from the west. If Dajjal wants to be a rival to the truth, then Dajjal will have to cause the sun to rise from the west. And I say he's already done that. Because a literal explanation or understanding of the sun rising from the west is not possible. It is in conflict with the Quran because Allah says, La tabdila li khalqillah. Allah's creation does not change. What is Allah's creation? But I just said it. I just said it. Allah's creation is one in which the sun rises from the east and it sets in the west. I don't know whether I have to use another language to explain it. That's what the Quran says. The natural order of Allah's creation is that the sun rises from the east and sets in the west. And therefore when Allah says, La tabdila li khalqillah, Allah's creation does not change, the implication is that the sun will continuously rise from the east and set in the west. That's the implication of what is in the Quran. And so if there's a hadith which says that Dajjal will cause the sun to rise from the west, it cannot be understood literally. Those who want to understand it literally, that's your choice. I reject that. You do not have to accept my views. No, you can continue to believe that one day the sun is going to go opposite, or the moon, the earth is going to revolve opposite direction and all that nonsense. If you want to believe in that nonsense, I'm not stopping you. Go ahead and believe. NASA will continue giving you evidence to support the view that the earth is going to revolve in a different direction, and then the sun is going. Yes, if you want to accept that stuff, go ahead, accept it. But why should I have to accept it? No. I have said that a literal explanation is impossible because it will be in conflict with the Quran. And therefore it is a symbolic or metaphorical explanation. And therefore there will come upon the world a false sunrise. And that false sunrise will come from the West. And that is modern Western civilization. Okay? Then of course they'll come after me. Oh, but when the sun rising from the west, no more Tawbah after that. Okay? Well then, perhaps you might want to continue, go back, leave me alone and go back with your nonsense, and I don't have to convince you that the sun is going to rise, that there's going to be a western sunrise. If you want to believe in that, go ahead and leave it. Leave me alone. Leave me alone with your nonsense. Go ahead. I don't need you. I don't need you. And I have no problems at all in your accepting the nonsense that one day the rotation of the earth is going to change and the sun is going to literally rise from the west. I have no problem with that nonsense. If you want to accept that nonsense, why don't you please accept it and leave me alone? I have more important things to do than pay attention to nonsense.
In 2015, during Hajj time, a crane collapsed inside Masjid al-Haram, killing 111 people and injuring 394. And then thousands of people died in Mina. Are these signs of the coming of Imam al-Mahdi?
I don't think I have any capacity to connect this with Imam al-Mahdi. No, somebody else more learned than me will have to answer that question, yeah.
Saudi Arabia's powerful Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wants to reform Saudi Arabia into moderate Islam. His government arrested several princes over anti-corruption, and they bombed Yemen, aided Syrian rebels, cut ties with Qatar, and has recently accused Turkey and Iran of being part of a triangle of evil. What is Prince Salman's main agenda?
No, first of all, I want to take up the term moderate Islam. And I want to translate that for you in the English language. What is moderate Islam? And this is an explanation of the term moderate Islam that will please all those who manage and control the affairs of the masajid. You know, the management committee that controls the masjid? Yeah, this is the explanation for them. Moderate Islam is that Islam that will allow you to keep your name off the no-fly list. Moderate Islam is that Islam where no one will say you are a terrorist. Moderate Islam is that Islam in which you do not insist that a woman must cover her head with hijab. Moderate Islam is that Islam in which a man can shake hands with a woman. Yes. And if you refuse to shake hands with a woman, that is called radical Islam. So take your moderate Islam and put it back in the garbage bin from where it emerged in the first place. Islamic scholarship don't use this rubbish as terms. Islamic scholarship does not accept terminology from people who are waging war on Allah. On Allah, they're waging war on Allah. So we do not use this rubbish term of moderate Islam. The scholars from Oxford University, of course, they can continue to use this terminology of moderate Islam and radical Islam. But the true scholar of Islam will not betray Allah and His Messenger. What we say is there are Muslims who are true Muslims, and then there are part-time Muslims. That's the terminology we will use. Okay? And so, we do not want to accept terminology which will program us to talk and to think and to act in a manner consistent with the programming designed by our enemies. That's moderate Islam.
Rohingya Muslims are facing the worst genocide in recent history. Men, women, children are being slaughtered, burnt alive. Along with the villages, women and children are being raped by Myanmar army and Buddhists. Those that have managed to escape have all fled to Bangladesh. Some are stuck in no man's land. We have now more than 1 million Rohingya Muslims in Bangladesh, which include thousands of children whose parents were killed, thousands of women who are pregnant because they were raped by Myanmar army. Some of them now have HIV. My uncle went to the Rohingya camps and he saw with his own eyes. Also, one of my friends who is a journalist who works for a Bangla news channel. Young Rohingya men carried their disabled parents from Myanmar to Bangladesh. As far as I know, every journalist, aid worker, ordinary people who went there in the Rohingya camps cried their eyes out. Why is this happening to Rohingya Muslims?
The answer is Gog and Magog. Allah spoke in the Quran and He says, Inna Ya'juja wa Ma'juja mufsiduna fil ard. That Gog and Magog will perpetrate facade on earth. Our great-grandparents, our ancestors had to crawl on the earth before the British imperial masters. They had to go down and bend their knees and their hands like animals to crawl before a British imperial master and lord, because they insisted on that. So the war on our people has been continuing for a long, long time. The same kind of rape and plunder and killing and massacre that's taking place in this part of the world compares with the impoverishment of the masses around the world through riba. And our people are suffering, they are in destitution. Masses all around the world. Do not study the Rohingya subject in isolation. No. There are massacres taking place so many other parts of the world, they just don't mention it. And there is suffering, including the Palestinian people in Gaza, who are now on the verge of collapse. And our Prophet told us that these things will happen. We don't have to look for an answer why, because the Quran told us why it's happening. In fact, there's more to come. The Arabs are going to be destroyed. This is the Rohingya. What is coming to the Arabs is worse. So are you going to ask me tomorrow, why are the Arabs suffering like this? Yeah? This is what the Quran has said, and said this is Gog and Magog. Now those who are resisting Gog and Magog, we at least have some credentials. We are having some credentials that we are looking forward to the day when we can protect our people when Imam al-Mahdi comes, inshallah, and we regain power in the world, the Khilafah state is restored. But what about those who wage their bogus jihad in Syria? Taking weapons from Saudi Arabia, which is hand in glove with the Gog and Magog world order. And then they want to condemn me, saying that I am supporting Assad. And Assad is a dog, and Assad is a cat, and Assad is a louse, and Assad is this, and Assad is that, and Assad and the other. And you are supporting Gog and Magog. You are hand in glove with Gog and Magog. You are taking weapons from the CIA. You are taking American dollars to wage your bogus jihad, and you want to have me say you are people worthy of respect. I say to you, you are not Muslims. I say to you, you have left Islam. I say to you, if you die in that bogus jihad, I will not pray over your body. And I'll never stand at your grave. You're traitors. But you are brainwashed. And now you realize that you are brainwashed and you don't know how to get out of your predicament. The answer is that you must make tawbah. Yes, tawbah. And separate yourself from that evil world. That world which is causing that Rohingya massacre. And they're sending the money to support the massacre. They're the paymasters. The same people who gave you the weapons to go to Syria are the same people who are paying for the Rohingya massacres to continue. Same people. The same people who are giving you the US dollars to go and wage your bogus jihad are the same people who are paying for the Rohingya massacre to continue all the time. Same people doing it. So you are the ones we have to condemn. Not Gog and Magog, because we know about Gog and Magog in the Quran. You who have joined with them and left the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And now you're embarrassed because you went to Syria and you killed so many people and you come back to the Western world. And you want to condemn me because I expose you for what you have done. You're bogus jihad. You're not going to be part of our Ummah until you make tawbah for what you've done and seek Allah's forgiveness for what you have done. And stop this bogus jihad in Syria. If Russia had not intervened, Syria would have become another Libya. And you would have celebrated if Syria had become another Libya, because you are in the camp of Gog and Magog. That's it. We pray that Allah may protect us from you.
Do you have any advice for Bangladesh government? Because they're already done a lot for Rohingya.
I cannot comment on the Bangladeshi government and its policies on that subject because I don't have enough knowledge.
Okay.
I think we've had a long time.
Just 3 more questions left. I'm going to be really quick. In Hadith Jibril, when Prophet ﷺ was asked about the signs of the last hour, and he said, one of them, he said, the slave woman will give birth to her master or mistress. You mentioned in a lecture that this is to do with riba and commercial surrogacy, which is women are being hired to give birth to someone else's child. My question is this actually a sign of married gay couples wanting babies? Because it seems like more and more women are being hired by gay couples to give birth to their children.
That could be one of the ways in which surrogate parenting took place, yes.
How do we survive the coming wars? Can remote villages in the countryside guarantee the safety of Muslims from the upcoming destructions of the nuclear clash between Gog and Magog?
The first thing is that the Muslim who is a Muslim is not afraid to die. If you have the fear of death in your heart and you're searching for some corner of Allah's earth where you can survive and not die, then something is wrong with your heart. A Muslim is not afraid to die, number one. Number two, a Muslim has the faith in his heart that no one can take his life. None. If Allah has not ordained death, no one can take his life. And if Allah has ordained that he should die, nothing he can do will keep him alive. So a Muslim submits to Allah. If Allah has ordained life for me, I will live. And if Allah has ordained that I should die, I will die. When the big war takes place, if you have your heart in the right place, and you have faith in Allah, and you're not afraid to die, if you die in the great war, then you will be raised as shaheed. That's the good news for you. It's good news for you. And there is in Surah Ar-Rahman, if you go to Surah Ar-Rahman and you see the verses connected with the great war, the Malhama, you will see where Allah speaks of those who will be raised and their faces will be with nur. And there will be others who will be raised after the Malhama, the great war, and their faces will not be like that. That's the first response I have to say concerning the great war. The second one is you have a duty to get out of the cities of the modern world before that war takes place. Make provisions to go to the remote countryside, because a Muslim has a duty to protect himself and his family from the fire. Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. If Allah is going to destroy a country because this country has a man marrying another man and getting a marriage certificate, you should not be in that country. You should leave. If you cannot leave such a country, you should at least leave the cities and go to the remote countryside. But I have said this probably 500,000 times already. I have said it probably 500,000 times already. And when you go to the remote countryside, go and live in small communities. You don't have to be Muslim, you can have Christians, you can have Hindus, you can have Jews, but you must live as a community together in mutual respect and helping each other. In the cities they will kill each other for food and water after the Great War. But in the remote countryside they'll share with each other whatever little food and water they have. And you must try to plant some food so you'll be able to survive.
My last question. It is suggested by the UK government that from 2019 children going to primary schools will be taught about relationships, including LGBT relations, which is gay, lesbian, bisexual, these relations. Members of the Jewish, Christian and Muslim faith are opposing this. What is your advice for the Muslims living in the UK?
You cannot prevent it. No, because this is not happening by accident. No, this is by divine design. Allah is testing you. Allah is testing you. You have come to this part of the world which is rich, and you've left that part of the world which is miserably poor. The Prophet said that people will follow Dajjal because of his mountain of bread. He said so, that people will follow Dajjal for his bread because he has a mountain of bread. He said so. So, if you choose to remain with the bread and the affluent life and the comfortable life, then you will not be able to keep your children. Now, you will lose your children. That's the price you will pay. If you take your children out of the school, because in the school they're being taught that a man can marry another, and incidentally, I don't use this LBGT terminology. You'll never hear me from that. I will never use such terminology. It is homosexuality and it is condemned in the Quran. Don't hide it with cosmetic words like gay. No. It is condemned in the Quran, and I will not tolerate a cosmetic covering of terminology which should be condemned. Homosexuality it is, and the school will teach your children that a man can marry another man. That's acceptable behavior. That's their morality. So you take your child out of the school and you want to do homeschooling. But guess what? They don't have to send inspectors now knocking at doors to get information. No. Cryptocurrencies is coming to fulfill a certain function. The function of cryptocurrencies is to bring down the monetary system that now exists, so that an entirely electronic monetary system will replace it. That's the function of cryptocurrencies. When that electronic monetary system takes over completely, I was traveling from Geneva to London with British Airways. When I wanted to buy a bottle of water, they told me I can't pay for it cash. That's what it is. A bottle of water, you have to pay for it electronically. That's British Airways. So it's coming now, the rope is tightening around our necks, and yet they ban Imran Hosein from coming to the masjid to lecture. Shame on you. So when the electronic monetary system takes over completely, they don't need to send people to knock on the doors of your house. They know your profile. You can't even buy a loaf of bread without an electronic trade. So when they see that you've taken your children out of school and you're homeschooling, in order to protect your children from that homosexuality and so on, then they'll find an excuse to come and seize your children from you and take your children away from you and give your children to couples who will maintain your children and be caregivers for your children to ensure that your children go to such a school and be taught that a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate. At that time when that happened, please do me a favor. Don't send me an email. Don't send me an email to ask me, Sheikh, what can I do? They took my children. That's coming, yeah.
So this was my last question. I would like to thank you, Sheikh, and your students in Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, they all asked me to tell you the salam, and they want you to pray for them so that they can learn eschatology, and they want guidance. So they're seeking guidance in the Quran and the Hadith, and they just don't want to be betrayed as the ancestors. I mean, the grandfathers and fathers. Some of them have followed such sheikhs that no one ever explained eschatology the way you've explained. So
tell them I thank them for their du'as for me, that Allah might protect me, that I may be able to travel safely, and that I may not be harmed by my enemies, and that Allah may be able to provide for me, that I can be able to continue doing the work that I do. And if they make that dua for me, then my response is, do no bad. Do no bad? Do no bad, yes, thank you. Okay.